Everyone. I figured that some people might find this interesting. Will there be a draft? Young people worry after the military strike. This is from the New York Times. I don't know how accurate any of these news stories are, but this is what I have looked up. Interest in the draft in World War III surged online, stalling the government website where young men are required to register. Here's what you need to know. For decades, American men over the age of 18 have gone through the ritual of registering with the government in case of a military draft. In recent years, this action has felt more like going through the motions, simply checking a box. But on Friday, after a United States drone strike in Iraq killed Iran's top security and intelligence commander, prompting concerns about the possibility of a new war in the Middle East, that often forgotten paperwork became a reason for spiking anxiety among many Americans. World War III started trending on social media. Young men suddenly recalled registering after their 18th birthdays. Many have done so while applying for college and financial aid. One Twitter user posted that he had blocked the account of the United States Army with the faulty reasoning that they can't draft you if they can't see you. Interest was so high that it apparently crashed the website for the Selective Service System, the independent government agency that maintains a database of Americans eligible for a potential draft. Due to the spread of misinformation, our website is experiencing high traffic volumes at this time, the agency said on Twitter, adding, "We appreciate your patience." Here's an explanation of the current military system and what it would take to enact a draft in modern times. Is there going to be a military draft? The United States first conscripted soldiers during the Civil War and continued to use the draft in some form on and off through the Vietnam War, said Jennifer Mittelstadt, a professor of history at Rutgers University who has studied the military. But there has been no conscription since 1973, when the draft was abolished after opposition to fighting in Vietnam. There was huge support for ending the draft across the political spectrum. The modern-day military is now an all-volunteer force with about 1.2 million active duty troops. To change that, Congress would have to pass a law reinstating the draft, and the president would have to sign it, actions that would likely require a broad political support. What is the draft age? All men from 18 to 25 years old are required to register with the Selective Service System. Many young men check a box to register when getting a driver's license. Others sign up when applying for federal student aid to attend college. But just because you have registered does not mean you'll be drafted. Right now, registering for Selective Service really means nothing about the likelihood of you serving in the current military, Dr. Mittelstadt said. Joe Heck, the chairman of National Commission on Military, National and Public Service, a committee created by Congress to evaluate the Selective Service System, put it this way. Registration is ongoing. A draft would require an act of Congress. What are the consequences if you don't register? If you do not register for Selective Service as a young man, you can be subject to lifetime penalties. For example, men who did not register cannot receive federal financial aid, and they cannot work for the federal government, Dr. Heck said. To check if you have registered, visit the Selective Service System's website once it's up and running again. Can women be drafted? No. Historically, only men have been eligible for the draft, but the question of whether to register women has gained traction in recent years as women have taken on broader roles within the military. In 2015, the Pentagon opened up all combat jobs to women. Last year, a federal judge in Houston ruled that excluding women from the draft was unconstitutional. As part of its work, the National Commission on Military, National and Public Service is considering whether to expand the registration requirement to include women. The group's final report on that and other issues is expected to be released in March. Are there arguments for reinstating the draft? In the 1860s, mobs of mostly foreign-born white workers took to the streets in New York City to protest conscription during the Civil War, burning down buildings and inciting violent attacks against black residents. A century later, burning draft cards became a symbol of protest against the war in Vietnam. I think it's fair to say that the draft has never been wildly popular, Dr. Mittelstadt said. But she said there were arguments in favor of a modern-day draft, including the potential to make the military more representative of society. The current all-volunteer force is more likely to recruit people from the working class, she said, with higher percentages of non-white Americans serving in uniform. I don't know what it means in a democracy that you let some people fight your wars and everybody is not responsible. American citizens are not implicated in the consequences, bodily human life, economically, of war, and they should be. Wow. Okay. Here, this is a correction. It says here, because of an editing error, an earlier version of the headline with this article misstated the location of the U.S. military strike. It occurred in Iraq, not Iran. It killed a top Iran commander. Okay, guys, what do you guys think about this? Do you think that there's going to be another draft? Or do you think women are going to be involved? I kind of wonder if they are because of all the new transgender. I don't know if they're going to say, well, you're a boy, so you can fight. I don't know. I don't know if that will have anything to do with it or not. I really don't. I hope they don't draft girls because I have a 19-year-old daughter, which would really stink. But you guys weigh in. I'm trying to go slow so I don't make anybody dizzy. I'm trying to go to the top picture. But anyhow, you guys, this was an article by Sarah Mervosh, and there you go. Thanks for watching, and you guys have a great night. Say your prayers. Bye-bye.